Hi, my name is Phil. I like talking about politics. In this video, I'd like to discuss the Conservatives and how they seem to have changed their aims for our relationship with Europe 5 times in as many years, and ponder why it is that their supporters have any confidence that these fickle fantasies can possibly steer our national course. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So the first position the Conservatives had was to be proud members of the EU. Well, maybe not proud so much. They were not above calling the EU out when they needed someone to blame, but that's one of the things that made them so happy to be members of the EU. Whenever they cocked up the economy or implemented unpopular rules, or even just didn't seem to be doing what they promised in their manifesto, they'd blame the EU. Oh, it's all their fault. We can't do anything about it. It was fine. It's not like any of this behaviour was going to seep into the public consciousness and be taken advantage of by those advocating our exit. But then the Conservatives elected Cameron as their leader, generally well liked in the party, but with no backbone at all, a man who caved into the extreme right of his party when he should have been banging his fists on the table like Major before him. And he agreed to a referendum, but seemingly in the belief that he wouldn't have to follow through on the promise because the Lib Dems, his coalition partners at the time, would never allow it. But then the Lib Dems got hammered in the elections for supporting the Conservatives. Cameron won a majority and probably became the first Prime Minister in British history to be unhappy at winning an election. So then the referendum came and went, Cameron stepped down to chase pigs and the party became pro-Brexit. But Brexit this time would mean retaining all the benefits of membership, including full access to the single market. The idea that we'd not have access to the single market was frankly ludicrous. Who would do something so insane? Arrangements such as that enjoyed by Norway were bandied about, as they had been during the Brexit referendum campaign itself. But then they hit a little snag. The problem was that the way that the Norway arrangement was communicated to the British public bore little actual resemblance to the relationship that Norway had with the EU. So, Norway had to be abandoned as a model. What Britain needed, said the Conservatives, was a completely new arrangement. So they moved to a third form of Brexit, not based on other countries as models, no, but an entirely new model. The problem was that nobody knew what this new model should look like. So Theresa May bought in a load of plasticine and got her ministers to spend ages playing with it. Plasticine of all different colours trying to find this new model. Boris Johnson made a red bus. David Davis made a green toad. But none of the little Brexiteers, no matter how hard they tried, could make a model for a relationship with the EU that would be acceptable to both the EU and their party. Eventually, it was decided to just leave, tied to the customs union until a solution for Northern Ireland would be, or one that would be acceptable to the DUP at least, could be found. Little Boris Johnson and little David Davis were so upset that Theresa didn't choose their models that they quit the government. Then came the notion of the Canada Plus deal. This would have meant zero tariffs on all goods, not simply most of them, as with the Canada Not a Plus deal. But there were lots of problems. It would have meant extra paperwork to stop exporters sending goods to the UK to pay lower tariffs and then into the EU in order to save on customs duties. They would have needed an expensive system of tracking goods inside the UK to make sure people paid the right customs duties. It would have needed more checks at the borders, again increasing expense to the government. It would also have meant keeping certain standards aligned with the EU. But it would have done so on a gentleman's agreement, as opposed to being under the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. I mean, such arrangements are not unheard of, but they are notoriously difficult and keep having to be renegotiated every time one side changes something. Finally, it would have meant a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And just on this last point alone, the idea was never going to gain any real traction. People on both sides of the argument agreed that it would result in something much worse than continued membership of the EU. So then came another change of Prime Minister and a change of model. Boris had unfortunately sat on his plasticine bus, so he couldn't use that, so he came up with the Canada deal instead. This would not have meant tariff-free trade on all goods, meaning that there would be years of negotiations on agreeing which would and which would not be tariff-free, as well as deciding what tariffs and quotas should exist on certain goods. There's no capacity for the vital trade in financial services that the UK depends on, and the EU was not prepared to agree to an arrangement that would allow the UK to gain a competitive advantage on its own doorstep with such a large market. Canada was one thing, as the trade between Canada and the EU is not as large as that with the UK. maple syrup on pancakes is nowhere near as big in Europe as it is in North America. So now the Conservatives have hit upon another plan, a fifth one. All this thinking about models is hurting poor little Boris Johnson's head. He's sick of getting plasticine stuck to his trousers. So now the Conservatives are adopting the no-deal model. To visualise it, you don't need all that messy plasticine. You just need a glass house and a bag of stones. So those are the 5 Brexits that the Conservatives have moved through in 5 years. Can't wait to see what the next 5 Brexits will look like. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, then please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.